Yep.
Well, thank you and welcome everyone here today to our Western Shire October Council meeting. We are here today in Douglas. We've just had a fantastic community meeting with the local community as well as a lunch. And thank you for everyone who's come along today. We really do appreciate hearing from you, and we do really enjoy getting out and meeting with our some of our smaller communities. We all come from small communities in our side, and it's really good just to get that really, personal one-on-one, have a chat with people, get to know actually what's happening here and how council can work together. So, and we've got a few great ideas from the community today, a few things that we're going to follow up on, and so thank you for everyone involved in that. If everyone could please stand, if you're able to. Acknowledgement and the opening prayer.
Acknowledgement of country, the West Wimmera Shire Council acknowledges the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet, pays respect to their elders past, present and emerging. The opening prayer. Almighty God, we humbly ask your blessing upon this council, guide and prosper our decisions to the advancement of your glory and the true welfare of the people of West Wimmera Shire. Amen.
On 4.1, do we have any apologies?
Let's see.
Let's see, on leave currently, so it's an apology. Any leave of absence? Any conflicts of interest from anyone who is letting on the agenda? If not, we'll look through. Questions from the gallery, written questions, have we received any written questions? We have verbal questions without notice. We have a recommendation to suspend standing orders. That's moved by Councillor Bretloff, seconded by Councillor Hicks. No discussion required or in favour, that's carried. So again, I know we've just had a bit of a chat with the community and everything, but this is the formal part of our meeting where you may ask a question without notice. There are rules involved in this. The same thing, if you could just say your name and where you're from. It's also important that you only ask a question and not hear the debate and have a discussion like we were previously. This is simply an opportunity to ask a question to council. Questions must be respectful, must not be out of line, and each person may ask 2 questions. I think it's a privilege to be able to ask questions of council, so we hope people do not abuse that privilege. So now I'll ask, does anyone have a question?
In relation to the Solly's episode,
Just say your name first.
how the combined the like, sorry. Yeah, in relation to Solly's said that the fine that he's accumulated over the time. It just seems a little bit over the top. I'm a ratepayer in the West Wimmera. I would have thought that our rates would be spent more effectively, more a better way anyway for the people of the Shire. And if you compare that to what goes on in Melbourne, people entering houses and so forth, this is ridiculous.
Again, I believe that the compliance matter is still before VCAT, so there isn't a final outcome on that one yet. Again, we as a council, we receive a lot of complaints and people expect us to do action, take action as well. So again, we can't have it both ways. We just ignore the rules and so they don't apply, or we've got to enforce rules. And so that is council's position on that matter. As it's still before the court, I don't think you can discuss too much about the matter itself.
I understand, but it's not, it doesn't make it any better.
Any further questions?
You got that thing about Are you right?
Yeah, I'm right.
Dolly from Harrow. First question, if that's okay. Can I ask council in regards to the community consultation they had at Harrow with the Harrow community a few weeks ago, asking the Harrow community what it is that they wanted in that town for now, to find out that council behind the township's back has halved the township zone in half from, where was it? Sorry. Originally it was Campbell's Hill Road and Empress Road, and now it's Swanson Street. It's absolutely reduced it down to less than half of what it is. And then you even had the nerve in your report to write that you predict the township of Harrow to decline in population. So my question again is, what happened to that community consultation where Harrow, you had quite a large turnout, apparently it was one of the record turnouts that you had in Harrow, it seems you had not listened at all to anyone in that town. What was the decision based on to reduce that township by half?
Okay, for a start, township boundaries have not been halved. That is a complete fallacy. There has never been a realignment of township boundaries in Harrow since the West Wimmera Shire has been in place. That's over 30 years. You are looking at zoning maps, and they have been in existence for quite some time. You can go back and look at a 1950 township boundary map, which might show under that, but that is just an ancient map. You can go and have a look at Europe from that time and ask people, where's Czechoslovakia? It doesn't exist anymore. These things have been changed over a long course of time. The township planning zones have been in place for over 30 years for Harrow. This is not something that's happened, and it's not something the council can do because it's not something we have the power to do. So we can't go and just change a township boundary. We have to go through, it's almost a 3-year process. It costs nearly $100 million. You've got the ministerial approval. You obviously think council has just gone to change the township boundaries.
Yeah, I do.
Well, that is spreading lies and misinformation, and I'm calling you out of line, and you have no further questions.
Well, you know what? I'm out of here.
Out. Out. If you're going to disrupt the council meeting.
My second question to you, what I'm saying to you, is to leave us the fuck alone, right? Out. You're out. Out.
I'm not allowed to build on TV. So he has a case. My word, he has a case. But the presentation isn't probably the best way.
Again, it's a relation to your matters on, but the planning scheme has been amended over the years for where you have a right to build a house in the family zone. You no longer have it as a right because it's now up to 200 acres to have it as a right. You may still build a house with a planning permit.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, if it takes a court, moving people sleeping under bridges and on the edge of rivers, it costs the ratepayers a lot of money and will get that. Just
I think that
the accommodation situation, the way it is at the moment, has really got to be looked at. And to say it hasn't changed, it has changed.
Okay.
Definitely has, and I've got legal proof of that, as I say, where I built. And there's another 2 blocks there beside me, but I can't build them. Yeah. And I built there 43 years ago legally, now I can't build there. So the town boundaries of Harrow have been changed recently.
Okay, so the council prepared to reduce their laws. If not, we have more time to ask them questions if anyone wants to put questions. Yeah.
I'd like to ask how many complaints you've had about people living in the main street of Harrow without correct permits.
Look, I have a lot directly to myself. Firstly, you say your name and
Sorry, Josie Saints Harrow.
I've had a lot come personally to me. We've also received several emails, and they have been from both a mixture of both residents as well as tourists. who are quite cool, but they see when they drive down the main street of Harrow, I think we can all agree Harrow is quite an attractive town. And that they are quite shocked to see the state of that order. Again, we as council, we've only followed our own rules, to say that, you know, this needs to be tidied up, please tidy it up. And when people don't comply, we'll fight it, and then come here and call you all such and such as, then I don't think that they're ever going to comply. So again, your question was how many proceed. I can't tell you exact number of that, but it has
Is it
been,
overwhelming? Is it more than,
it's over 10. I
Mhm.
will say that. I've received personally over 10 complaints.
I can guarantee you there's a whole lot more than that, you just haven't got them.
Yeah, and I believe that as well. I'm hearing people who say, I was talking to such and such, and they are. Yeah, but I've had 10 complaints directly to me. I know council, I know, again, we don't talk about CRs and it goes on that, but there'd be very substantial number of as well.
Thank you.
Is that? Yeah, I'll give us again, I believe.
I think, Dolly, I don't condone the presentation at all, but, initially, I think he set out to get his permit for a van till he can get, permission to build a house. He's presented all that to the council, hasn't he?
He's never applied for a permit to stay in a caravan on his block. He's never applied.
Sorry,
He's never applied for a permit. He's applied for a permit to build on there. Like he applied for a planning permit to build a house. He's never actually applied to stay in the caravan.
he went to council and tried to apply for a permit to live in the caravan until he got a house. And the council didn't have
A regulation.
We do.
No, they never had that. Sorry.
The form, yeah.
Yeah, they never had the correct form, and I think he tried on with 3 other council forms. And initially, the council gave him a form to start a caravan park, and he said, I don't want to start a caravan park, I want to.
I think there are several issues that overlaying each other here because he did start a caravan park. And we have evidence of him advertising it as a caravan park.
Right.
And he has, the advice I've received from the officer is he's never applied for a permit to start in the caravan on his block.
But I guess we take the question on notice, because we can do the research and respond. There's a lot of misinformation thrown around here. I'd rather get the facts and respond back to the.
That'd be good if we could get to the bottom of it, because it's obviously
As the mayor
upsets the
said,
man.
the breach has been the breach of the planning scheme because the use is accommodation on the block. That's the defined use under the planning scheme. That's the breach. And he hasn't applied. You can get a permit to live in a caravan while you're building a house, but you must submit your building application to do so, to have a building permit in place. Of course, he hasn't got that.
And that breach, is that an isolated case in the West Wimmera Shire?
Of someone living in a caravan. There's
Yeah.
one that's been brought to council's attention through these numerous complaints. The council's followed up this one
Right,
as it's required to do under the planning scheme.
fair enough. So you can get that information back so that,
We can investigate that and provide you with a written response.
yeah, I'd like to clear up a few anomalies, let's look at that.
Yeah.
Give this town planning power to where I live, was 6 generations of lived. I've got the maps handed down to from my great grandparents. And the plan of power has definitely changed, that's what it's explained. But who changed it and who's got the authority to do that? Because my found maps have cut out on that third. of what you've just been talking about. It's definitely changed. And I don't believe the present town maps of Harrow are the accurate maps. I believe the ones I've got are the accurate ones. And I'd like to know who's got the power to cut Harrow on the third I don't believe anybody has. I've got titles there and it's in the town, they're not genuine titles or something.
Okay,
So can that be looked into, please, and can I get the opportunity to produce some evidence that Harrow has been cut by 2/3 area-wise?
you can bring that to our next forum, that'll be fine.
Sorry,
But please bring that to our next forum.
next forum. Thank you.
Anyone prepared to resume standing orders? Have we got any comments? I think we might always be nice to the move on councillor Brett by second, I think we'll start required, if not, votes carried. We'll move to item 6, our delegates report. Over the last month, attended the MAB conference in Melbourne. Again, usual fare where you hear the same questions every year and nothing ever seems to change. There was one positive from the evening when the minister actually said he was going to do more to prevent campers from getting bullied. From being bullied and people behaving badly in the community, so we look forward to seeing what that's like. He also said that he was hoping to take it to the federal government that 1% of all Commonwealth revenue should come to local governments, which is what it used to be. It's now currently at 0.5%, and we don't know what the funding gap is. So again, that's positive news from the minister. The rest of the items we can take as read. Councillor Brett.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. As read, last Thursday I went to Carnarvon to the muster dogs. I mean, that was really good. I think I got to pick the events actually. I was up there to open that. Tim was in Melbourne, MAB, and David had a meeting in Horsham. So I went up there and it was great. It was a really good day. I do wonder, it's been said to me, whether I think the sheep and the goats, I don't know how you train goats, but I'm sure the sheep and the goats have certainly seen the dogs in these trainers before, or they were gems, I don't know which way, but the dogs certainly did well. And yeah, it was the start of our senior 6th month. We've got quite a few events during this month, and that was the first one, and there were, bus loads. I think it was said about 200 people, so it was a good day. On Saturday, did you mention that or not, going to Edenhope to the memorial for Maria and Louisa Langley. That was really interesting. Yeah, just I guess for me, got a lot out of it, just really to get a little bit more insight to the story. So it's just a really good outcome that's all the graves have been marked, and the family, I think, are pretty inept with that now, which is really good. And on Sunday, I went down to Harrow to the message was it's okay to say no. Is it Shannon Long? So we're in the country, and that was just a really good turnout. In fact, I drove into Harrow and thought, this is exactly it, Harrow's happening. Like you have your Harrow happening newsletter, and seems to be it's always like that when I go there. Funnily, it's usually for something, but it was a really good evening. The whole community, or those that were behind it, I congratulate, and it was a good message to get out there really, or just for the families. I think a lot would have got a lot out of it. So that's me. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Brett. Councillor Hicks.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I quite agree with Councillor Fred Love. Having looked around my family, I do realise how difficult it is to train goats. The Western Highway Action Committee, I didn't attend the meeting on the 10th of September. That's no, might be 9th after it. But I did attend a separate meeting on the 3rd of October, along with Brendan, which was to discuss with the consultant who's been contracted by the WAC group to develop a consistent strategy paper, but on behalf of WAC that we can use to present to various government, federal and state government ministers and committees to encourage reasonable unimproved funding and overall resourcing for the whole of the Western Highway, taking in from the border to Caroline Springs. I think those of you who use the Western Highway realise it really is a goat track. Goats seem to be the theme today, thanks Jody. And it needs massive amounts of input to try and bring it back up to a condition that is safe and reasonable, befitting an interstate, a major interstate highway. So hopefully the strategy will help with that. Otherwise, as read, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Hobbs.
Yes, so I attended the Muster Dogs event too. And 200 people came from all over. It was a very well run event. And obviously I've been busy with family for the last 3 weeks with my visiting family and my daughter getting married. So I couldn't attend the Garage Show or the Knife Show, but I do want to make mention of those shows. 500 people, I believe, attended the Garage Show, 900 entrants. And the $20 discount that they do every year, it's just such a good initiative just to help make it more affordable for families. So I just think that's really, really good. The Knife Show, I believe, had somewhere between 1,000 and 2,000 people through the gate. Sorry, I forgot to get the exact, but 2,200 entries. The comment that was made with the Knife Show was how amazing it is to see how many young people have stepped up, particularly this year. And we're seeing like all of those older people who have done it, it's now been passed on to that younger generation. So a lot of people in their 25 to 30-year-olds that were running all of that stuff that was traditionally being done by the older people. They also had the Muster Dogs TV through there as well, which is going to be brilliant publicity for the town. You know, you can't buy that sort of publicity. I know there was like 600 people at the motorbike event and even 2 on the weekend. So, I mean, all of this is outside money that is coming into our town being generated by events. I did attend the Commercial Hotel Trivia Night, and that was the prank trivia night with Misfits Minds. In less than a week of that being on YouTube, that has had 1.6 million views. So again, like that sort of publicity is phenomenal. All the comments, generally YouTube, it can be a difficult space for comments. 90% of all of those comments have been extremely positive. People going, wow, you know, what a great community. Geez, that audience was amazing. I'd love to live there. So, and then the same thing with the commercial. I just look at Bob and what he's done of transforming that. That has gone from a working man's pub now to probably 80% visitor, you know, people just saying you've got to call in and you've got to have a look at it. The money that he spent there is amazing. He's got the new EV, electric vehicle chargers. So there's 8 of them going into that particular space. That's about another $500,000 of flow-on effect into the local economy. But I just think it should be congratulated because it's about 80% visitor custom that's going through there. I also attended the Lions Youth of the Year too, which is fortunate that we've got a Lions Club that is running that. Across the board, rural youth ambassadors and Youth of the Years, there's a complete decline in people entering, but you know, they are bringing opportunities for young people. So yeah, that's about it.
Oops, Councillor Hawley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. 4th to the 10th go into the Garage Show. These agricultural shows now, the way I see it, depend highly on how many volunteers you can get to be successful. I congratulate Garage and their volunteering community. just a good crowd there. Things like the cooking competition, the cakes. There was enough cakes there to be judged. These are the cakes to get judged. To feed a 20 standing cheering team for 20 days. Heavens of some work went in by the ladies in the cooking of these cakes.
To get a sample and try.
Yep.
Or
But, no, the point I make is, the volunteer participation at the Grove Show. Then last Saturday, I went to the Conniva Show. Pretty much an identical setup. Might have even had more people volunteering there. Up until this year, I was of the opinion that the agricultural shows were on the way out. What I've seen in the last 2 weekends. Yeah, they even had a bloke there feeding the little wee kangaroo. God, he attracted some kids. Then on Sunday, I went to Shannon Warren's show run by the Harrow Bush Nursing Centre in the town hall there. It was an exceptional show. Things have changed in our lifestyle. It used to be don't drink, it's bad. This was more about no such thing. They had alcohol on the show. But this was about abusing alcohol and overdoing it. And the lady that spoke, she spoke for 2 hours on her life and was regularly referred back to alcohol. She won an Australia Day award. This present Labor government invited her to go with Prime Minister for the Queen's funeral. So she's reorganised a lot, but is now helping those that may need help in relation to that. It was an exceptional show. It's totally different from any show that I've seen before where alcohol was involved. I think Jody did agree with that. I do thank Jody for coming down too. Well done to the Bush Nursing Centre for running that show. Yeah. I've been involved in football netball clubs a lot, and I've been in this hall a lot. I've been here for boat camps, cabarets, dances, what have you. I just see something up there on the wall. In 1925,
You drank beer over the must.
Salt Lakes, from 1925, Salt Lakes, which is now Douglas, nobody can tell me why the name changed, won the premiership. So that's 100 years ago. They won the premiership this year, 100 years ago. So I'm going to try and organise a reunion of past players.
I'm too late.
I don't know how I'll go. Anyway, somebody can bring the sport show. That is incredible. That trophy up there. I've never seen it until 2 hours ago. No.
And so much polished.
Yeah, but that is a real treasure in life to me. That 1925, Salt Lakes. My grandparents used to talk about coming to Salt Lakes for the races. But that's a treasure. Righto, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, councillor Lamb. We want to send condolences. I don't think we have any. 8.1 confirmation of the previous council minutes.
Moved.
It's moved by councillor Hicks. Then by councillor Pritlove. Discussion on the floor, if not, all in favour, that is carried. We have no business or item in the minutes. Item 10, notice of motion. Councillor Lamb, you have lodged a notice of motion. You may read your motion.
On I'm not. Yeah, right. I'm not going to read through the actual motion, but I'll read an immediate moratorium on the emergency services fund. And two, establishment of an independent public inquiry to determine the most equitable and effective long-term funding model for the emergency services. If I could get a second to that, I would be happy to talk. Obviously, I can't talk until I get a second.
I'll second the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Please, talk on it.
I've got an amendment, which is really a satellite version, but I will have to read mine out, I'm afraid, Tom. And it's not that much different from yours, I've just tried to streamline, but my proposed motion is that West Wimmera Shire Council forward a letter to the Premier of Victoria, the Treasurer of Victoria and the relevant minister, stressing West Wimmera Shire Council's concerns with the Emergency Volunteer Services Fund, the ESVF. Whilst the new paragraph, whilst we acknowledge some short-term adjustments have been made to the ESVF, the scheme continues to place a disproportionate burden on our agricultural and small business sectors. This impact is compounded at the local government level, where councils are facing significant administrative costs and likelihood of financial shortfall from residents who struggle to pay. These challenges raise serious concerns about fairness, sustainability and unintended consequences for the communities we serve. Furthermore, West Wimmera Shire Council strongly support the proactive development of proper, equitable and sustaining funding of Victoria's frontline emergency services. Doesn't sound like much of a short.
Is there a second for the
Yeah,
amendment? And a second, does the mover of the amendment wish to speak?
I'll make some comments. I applaud Councillor Hillehan's enthusiasm, which has been ongoing ever since this body claims has been mentioned by the state government, and we're all well aware of the significant additional burden that it's going to place, particularly on primary production and primary producers. Council has in the past strongly supported actions to bring the state government into line over these taxes. We've moved several motions in the past by council, saying that we're not happy with the tax and we want it reviewed. And this is, a further motion by Councillor Hillehan to target or specifically target the Premier, the Treasurer and the relevant minister. And again, stress that we don't support it. It's not fair. It's not equitable, but we need emergency services to be properly funded using a proactive scheme that's appropriate. We all know the CFA and SES and that need proper funding. We've got 40-year-old fire trucks. Interestingly enough, the Forest Fire Victoria, wherever they are this week, just had 300 of their trucks pulled off the road because they were considered unsafe, but no CFA trucks that are 40 years old have a similar thing. I mean, that's short about way too long. And we do, it's appropriate that the CFA and the ES are appropriately funded. And if it comes via a levy, that's fine. The levy's got to be equitable. Anyhow, Tom, I have this motion, but I've tried to streamline a little bit. I'm done.
Is there a second for the amendment wish to speak?
Look, I very much support the amendment. I think it does represent, well, I guess it's the wording is probably represents our ratepayers, and I feel that it's just another avenue. So I strongly support sending this off. It's another avenue. It's more pressure, you know, it's something else that we can apply, and we have to keep niggling at this. So I do support and happy to happy to be behind sending off or moving that motion. Thank you.
Is there anyone else wish to speak for or against? Against online?
No, I'm not quite happy with this motion. I want the firefighters union and not in our name committee going to the government as the one force. I don't want them going as two individual forces, because I feel not in our name that we come the second base if we go as individuals, and the union will get first place. So that's why I spoke to my partner in support of the firefighters union and the Nottingham Name Committee. West Windrushire would like to raise the concerns of the Emergency Volunteer Services Act. I'd like to see the both of us go together, not have the union just going by themselves and us going by ourselves. I've just got a feeling that we won't get as good a hearing if we go by ourselves, get a better hearing if the two of us go together. Thank you.
Anyone else wish to speak?
Yes, I just commend Tom for your initiative in putting forward that notice of motion. And absolutely 100% supportive of it, but I just think that fine tuning that Councillor Richard Hicks has proposed just makes, it's just a little bit, it's just a few tweaks. I think the spirit and the intent and the content is still there, and so yeah.
Mr. Weber, any questions?
Can I say something before I sum up?
You have a question or?
I can probably make it into a question. Is it not possible, that I'll make it into a question, that the firefighters union several years, is it not true that several years ago, the firefighters union was rather in bed with Comrade Dan, and were rather sniffing around the CFA funding and membership dues to fund their own union activities? Personally, on this particular case, the firefighters union has been supportive, but I do wonder about their ulterior motives. And is it not a backdoor way of smooching up to the CFA for their own ill-gotten gains? That's why I prefer not to name them specifically. This go well for the ABC radio. That's why I prefer not to name them specifically, but to allow whoever the interest groups might be, and there could be others out in the community that want to support this overall push against the levy or the fund, to also represent shires, including our shire, on our behalf. So that's why I was wanting to take out specific names. There's probably expect a bomb under the front door tomorrow with a fire.
I'm not sure if the officer will be able to answer that question, so we'll just have to take that one on notice. But I do understand where the question's coming from, and I think we all can remember the involvement of the firefighters union and the CFA, and what was quite a horrid period as
It wasn't a pretty time.
No. So, with the move on to the Mr. Vicious.
Yeah, again, Tom, I commend you on preparing this motion, and bringing to our attention that this Shire, on behalf of this community, needs to continue to advocate for a fair and equitable taxing, which is really what it is, Fire Services Levy Fund. I think we need to continue to remind politicians of their obligations, not just to city-siders, but also to a large proportion of the population that resides outside the metropolitan area. We are as important, and we should not be specifically taxed. And that's what I think this motion is trying to do, to give us a fair go. We're happy to pay fair money, but give us a fair go. So I leave it now to the good graces of my fellow councillors.
Put to the vote, all in favour? Opposed, no, that was unanimous, so the amendment now becomes the motion. Is there any discussion required?
Do you need me to read this out? You're picking up on the tape. Yeah, thank you.
If there's no discussion required, we'll put it straight to the vote then, all in favour, that is carried. Item 11.1, the council forum records from Wednesday, the 3rd of September.
Move 11.1, 11.2.
And the forum from the Wednesday, the 1st of October, the Wednesday by block, that is moved. Who's seconding? Councillor Hobbs. Any discussion required? If not, put that to the vote. All in favour? That is carried. And proceed, no deputations or petitions. We'll take no CEO report. We'll move to item 14.1, community strengthening grant applications.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So we have received 6 applications for our community grants. The community grant program is set up to promote and increase participation, build and strengthen local networks. The organisations can apply for up to $5,000 in a 2-to-1 ratio. And they can apply every 2 years. The 6 that have applied are listed on the report. Other than that, thank you. Any questions?
Are there any questions? Councillor Hobbs.
So just double checking that this is my understanding, that all of these grants, they've all been advertised. The community groups were all emailed that they could put an application in. There was an information session and they've all gone through some sort of an interview process and that they will meet the actual criteria. That's correct.
Yes, so the application process is obviously open, it's advertised that it's open. There is a grant writing workshop that incorporates obviously these grants, but also there's the writing workshop as well. And the application is not an interview process as such, it's a formal application process, and that application process is then checked against the criteria of the grants and then all meet the criteria.
I'm happy to move the office recommendations as presented in the block, incorporating the 6 grant applications.
I don't really want to do it, but for the benefit of the audience, would you like to name the
I
community?
named them. The council approves the following community strength grant application for a total of $20,559.30. The service of golf facility upgrades and equipment purchase. The grant is $2,600 and a dribble. Conowiriko Community Centre facilities upgrade and equipment purchase for $5,000 for a grant. Carnarvon Men's Shed for facility upgrades and equipment purchase for just shy of $2,000. The Carnarvon Community Sporting Complex, which is not the football complex, this is the squat courts and gym and things like that. That's facilities upgrade and equipment purchase for around about $4,500. The Carnarvon Golf Club facilities upgrade and equipment purchase for just over $3,500. And the Harrow Neighbourhood House facilities upgrade and equipment purchase for $2 over $3,000.
Thank you, councillor Hicks. Am I prepared to second the motion? So Brett Love, second the motion. Does the mover wish to speak to the motion?
Yeah, I will. These community strengthening grants, I believe, are a really important contribution that council can make to community groups. We all know that running facilities, activities around the community seem to be costing more and more. And it's one of the small but significant ways that council can support these groups, whether they're sporting groups or other community groups, with these up to $5,000 grants. I think it's really pleasing that the 6 grants that we're talking about today has a reasonable spread around the Shire. We've got Harrow, we've got Carnarvon, we've got Suresnes, we've got Conowirrico. So it's not just from any one area, they are spread around. And I think the community if we approve of these, to remind the community that there will be a second round of grants in March, if I'm correct, March next year. And other community groups can make application through council for the second round, which this current round is roughly 20,000 of the 40,000 that we allocated each year. So the next round has significant amounts of money left for other groups to apply. And if you're talking to communities, recommend support them in making application if they've got some really good idea about how their facilities or their activities can be enhanced by some contribution from Shire. Having said that, again, it's a really positive and to me a very pleasing way that the council can show our support to these community groups and acknowledge that a lot of them are volunteers, which of course Tom's always very concerned about. And it's, I think, a great way to have some mutual cooperation between council and community. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah. So good enough. Second.
Well, I thought I'd do it, but as Richard's gone on and on.
Well,
I think I've just covered everything that, that I perhaps might have said. Only this group, the 6 groups that have to grant this money to will not be eligible for another 2 years. So that's really how it works and spreads it around. So I think that's all I can add to that, Richard. So no, very supportive. Thank you.
Anyone else wish to speak? Or next? Councillor Hobbs.
Yeah, so just wanted to go over some of the things that people have applied for. Surbiton Golf Club, it was for blinds. The Cooney-Warwick Community Centre, that was probably the largest project, $12,500, and they're talking about fixing up their floor. Now that is a shared facility with the Tennis Club, Land Care and CFA. Knife Men's Shed was for dishwasher and chairs. Knife Community Sporting Complex and the Harrow Neighbourhood House was both for gym equipment. And the Knife Golf Club is for a tee block. But I know the amount of work that has gone on at that golf club and it's all been, funded. So it's a small amount. The thing with it is there is particularly with, just wanted to make mention with Neighbourhood House too, because their funding, long-term funding is coming under fire with the state government. Not sure what that means for our neighbourhood houses. But they only receive funding for the manager coordinator. Sometimes the government can cover the whole cost of that. But yeah, the thing is they run such a diversity of activities, and a lot of those other groups too, they show communities, groups working together in partnership with other groups, and that's what we need to be encouraging. So I'm fully supportive of all of those recipients.
Councillor Hobbs, anyone else wish to speak for or against? I'll just quickly just say again, very, very supportive of this. This is one of the best programs the council runs because it lets little groups get stuff done, but it's little groups who are supporting themselves, which I think is important too, because that's what keeps our community so vibrant. So that people are willing to help themselves, and we just give them a little bit of extra on top, and then it really gets things done in our community. So again, open to everyone. All small community groups, check the availability, but we've got carve outs for CFA, so if the other CFO, modular CFO, or something needs something that meets the guidelines, you know, please come put an application in. So very happy to support this. Does the move wish to stand up?
No, Mr Mayor.
We'll push the vote then, all in favour? That is carried. Item 15.1, the decommissioning of the Canida aerodrome as an authorised landing area.
Mr Mayor, the report is there as read, recommendation, or says recommendations, but in essence, it's to commence steps to decommission the site as an authorised landing area. So, West Bromwich Shire Council own the land which the airport sits on. It's about 30 hectares just to the north of Canida. Nominally, there's a 600-metre grassed runway strip there as an authorised landing area. In reality, it's probably struggles to be 200 metres to prepared ground. There is a risk to council in that the site is currently advertised and available to pilots. If they were flying over and they check the pilot information, it will say the land can either it's a 600-metre strip. The result of this recommendation is, well, in the preparation of the report, we've consulted a range of users. We've actually commissioned a study from an aviation consultant. It's identified that it rarely can be used by aircraft. It's too small for charter operators to use. Air agents have confirmed in writing and they don't use it and have no intention to use it. So, as I said, the report recommends that we take that step of taking it from the CASA information, so it's not then promoted to pilots to land on, and a series of other things then which we can do to amend the leasing arrangements for the land, but currently an expression of interest for someone to graze or crop the land, and also, well, number 5 was investigate vision of a helicopter landing site within or near Canida Township. In consultation with the Ambulance Victoria, again, they've confirmed they currently use the oval. I guess that necessitate us to just confirm they're happy with that arrangement, or whether they are seeking any further upgrade to that. I'll move the question.
So, Lonnie, you have a question?
No, I want the information.
Your motion?
The council note the current poor conditions of the Canida aerodrome and resolve to investigate it. 1, funding for the remediation of the strip. 2, alternative suitable sites for relocation of the aerodrome.
Is anyone prepared to second that motion?
I'm happy to second it.
And seconded. Mr. Luke, wish to speak?
Yes, please. I'm going to talk from personal experience for a start. I was flying out of a country airport in the middle of the night down at Melbourne. Saved my life. We've got a hospital, we've got a busy road in Canida. I believe in the future, this airfield airport is part of the lifestyle. So I'm sorry, I can't, not while I'm on council, but I vote for the closure of this airfield. But we've mostly spoken about the health advantages of the airfield too. And with the water shortages and that sort of thing, the way a lot of our fires are fought now are from the air with the smaller aeroplanes. And I believe airfields like this are becoming a key part of the CFA. That's 2 solid reasons that this airfield should be looked at whether it's gonna be resurfaced. No, yeah, that's up to the expert. And there is a third reason too. Farming, a lot of farming now is done from the air more and more every year, as in spraying, measuring and that type of thing. And I believe for places like the farm supply, places in Caniva, if we had that airfield up and running where crops could be sprayed on a regular basis all the year round, it would be a big boost to the Caniva resale industries there involved in agricultural products. So, Mr. Mayor, before anything happens, I'm asking that there's a thorough investigation done into getting this airfield up to where it's serviceable for at least those three uses. Thank you.
Yes, you have a question?
Yeah, I do. I have a few.
You might have some questions?
And second to get right.
Well, when someone wants to ask a question.
Oh, okay.
Just based on.
Yeah, the second certainly gets to the right speaker. It's the next.
How long since this airport's been used? Somebody tell me.
Christmas Day?
Prior to that, it's probably been closer to 30 years.
Right, so Christmas time, we've got a string of planes.
Yes, that's-
Christmas.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right, next one.
Did the owner of that plane get permission to land there?
Don't know that you needed to.
Yes, they do. And they,
Well, you would have had to fill in a logbook, a flight plan, so I presume someone knew he was coming in. If not, the others.
Was this airport used in recent fires in the desert? Was it used by the BFA or was it used?
That you see the bill or Dino or Avalon or Admiral would be good.
All right. I assume there's crop dusting happening in the area. Is this where the crop dusters or is there private strips?
You know, I'm aware farmers do, doesn't be very like that.
I'm happy to say that there is a one strip that does allow one company to operate from their airside, but again, and this is a bit of a history lesson, and it goes back to the show and all that, it's actually predates my own father's time. Crop dusters were banned from leaving the aerodrome because local residents were concerned about
Chemical side, that was the question I would have. And well, the current strip, how far is that from where we're talking from the town? Yeah, what is being used for farmers, how far, what's that? How far is that?
Not a private strip of farms.
Yeah.
well, that's centrally located on the beach property, it's 5 miles from town straight north.
And we do have a provision in here for a helicopter landing in the event of an emergency. Yes, I'll answer my question. Right,
Mr. Seven, we should speak.
Thank you. I'm comfortable saying to speak quiet as I am. What concerns me is once a facility such as an airport is decommissioned, the opportunity of ever revamping it is precisely zero. So once it's gone, and unless we find an alternative place, we probably won't ever be able to use it again. I quite agree that the Caniva Strip will never be used for emergency services. We know it's not long enough, and any of those sort of facilities will be used out of nil in particular for firefighting or for repair ambulance. But maintaining even a lousy strip or a semi-lousy strip in Caniva allows the opportunity for planes to use it in the case of an aviation emergency. an inch and fault or whatever. Canaiva is conveniently midway between Bordertown and Mill, and I dare say if you're playing up there and you're chugging and chuffing, you'd be really happy to know there's a landing strip at Canaiva, short as it might be, to at least get your plane down, hopefully in one piece. I think we also need to consider that there's an opportunity to use it for recreational planes, and that's certainly what it was used for last Christmas. And we shouldn't exclude that opportunity. What Tom's motion or the motion on the table is proposing is that we look at how to undertake a modest revamp of the strip, not to bring it up to jumbo jets and have an international terminal, but to provide some limited grading of the two strips that would improve its overall condition and allow it to be used more regularly by recreational and emergency situations, and also to specifically designate a proper area for emergency helicopter landing, which has been used in the past. I know that everyone will say that it's probably on the footy oval, but I don't know if that's actually been designated as the official landing site. I think it's only been used, but not designated. So the main reason is I don't want to see Canaiva as a facility if it's not no real need for it. And I believe to grade it and to have the strip in semi-useful condition is probably only a few hours of graded, so probably at most $2,000 or $3,000 to bring it up to a condition that would maybe increase its life by another 5 years. Let's see what happens after that. Thank you.
Anyone else wish to speak for or against the motion? Councillor Ross.
Look, I'm the last person to be saying that we need to close services in Canaiva. I did actually do a reasonable amount of research into this particular issue, and certainly recreational use, with light planes and how they're coming down in price, and that you can buy them now for about $50,000. You know, it is on the increase, as is the whole crop duster type thing. There's actually two airstrips that you can use. One is Vivian's and one is Paul's. The main
You can use Albert Williams as well as a third
so one, right, and then you've got the one out of three.
as well.
So
Like Plaza outline, they're absolutely.
So I think with Eden Hope airstrip, it's about $30,000 in maintenance. I guess my question is also how many planes have actually landed there in the last 10 years? And I know when Will landed there and he landed at our house afterwards, he did say that our paddock was in much better condition than the Canaiva airstrip. I believe what the officer recommendation was really just a formality because it's not being used, and that we do have that bigger picture of housing. In regards to the emergency landings and all of that sort of stuff, there has been a couple of accidents which have happened. Praneel was a 11-year-old boy who had a cardiac arrest at school in 2021. That was the air ambulance helicopter. They can land anywhere. They landed at the school oval. Quite often the helicopters are landing at that school oval. And he was flown straight to Royal Melbourne Hospital. Just recently, there was a story that's just come up. This was in April. Truck driver from Melbourne. He had a cardiac arrest in his truck. And again, that was a helicopter that came in, landed, and then took him to Bendigo. So I just think that in order to, I also spoke to people like Michael Hodges, having left in both accounts, one with the housing and secondly with the Ambulance Victoria, and he just said there's no way they just would not land at that place, not when Neil has got such a good facility. I've also got another friend, Russell, who lives in Gnyder, who's also a pilot, and same thing, they just can't quite understand why. Really, the big picture is, and this is probably the question, is this impact going to impact on the housing project? Because the housing has got to be the number one priority. We are being so impacted by lack of population. We've had Zoe here, you know, we've got people that are struggling with housing. It's impacting on the whole of the school numbers. That's really the big picture of it all. There's only one student doing BCE in year 12 in Gnyder. There's 3 students doing general maths BCE across 3 year levels in Gnyder. So, you know, we desperately need housing is what we need. But is the airstrip, having that registered as an airstrip, is that impacting on the housing project or not?
It's, well, at the moment, housing project is not confirmed. We've applied for funds.
Yeah.
And there is no housing project unless we get the money. And it's in the very southern portion of the site, but the site itself in the current land zoning, the big plan, is township zone in the southern portion and farming zone in the northern portion. Which indicates to me that at some point council turned its mind to that site would be utilised for housing because that's what it's zoned as already. So ultimately this will help resolve that steps, progress forward. And as I said at the start, it's apparently not being used. I hear discussion. There's nothing stopping council ever looking at an alternative site somewhere if there's a demonstrated need. That's up to council. But this site is not big enough really for these sorts of uses that you would want to put money into. In most instances, it's twice the land.
So the question was, does, I think, does this compromise the
Yes.
housing project? That's the question, not for you.
Yes.
Does this compromise?
That's the opposite. Just answer.
So there are limitations to where you can build structures near airfields based on geometric distances and clearances coming from the runway. Now, where the corner we're talking about in the initial sort of 4 house phase won't be impacted. The 4-year-old subdivision it would be impacted. That funding hasn't been released yet, that we want to go for the 40-lot subdivision, but that could be released next year. And so this is one step to get that barrier out of the way, because otherwise we'll be faced with the situation, do we go with the funding or not?
Yeah, 20 seconds left if you wish to keep speaking. Or
Oh, well, I just mean, but probably my question is that my understanding is that this is really just a formality because the airstrip is not being used.
Largely, it would just be taking the information from the pilot supplementary information and taking it from CAS's published information. So the pilots don't inadvertently land in something that they can't land on. That's the risk for council. And the example at Christmas time, which was raised with us, was it was a bit ordinary and a bit surprising.
Yeah, but remember Tom's motion says to remediate the strip by grading up and making it more user friendly. It hasn't been touched in probably 10 years.
it's important that we don't speak out of order. Anyone else wish to speak for or against the motion?
No question. Is there enough length there for, today and what's safe with, I think it was suggested there's possibly 600 metres of landing. And 200 metres that's anywhere at the moment. So is there enough in a 600 metre strip to, and also what I'm aware that depending on wind and stuff, whether you have to have a different angle of taking off, and I guess that we're not looking at that type of angle, are we?
So it does have a cross strip, and the cross strip is shorter again. Okay. To answer the question, the 600 metres is probably the bare minimum for a general aviation aircraft. It's in the consultant's report. The types of home-built microcraft will be the ones that put on 600 metres. They tend to be maintained by homeowner pilots. So there's also added safety risks because it's a home-maintained aircraft landing on a short site.
Anyone else wish to speak for or against the motion?
No, someone.
No, I just want to say something first on the motion then. What we're discussing here is pretty much just tidying up something that is no longer fit for purpose. It'd be the equivalent of us getting one fax in every 30 years, so we can put a fax machine on everybody's desk again. It's, the area around there is just not fit for purpose at all. It's something that I'm well familiar with, it's something I've leased before, and I know the ground very well, and it is completely had zero maintenance for 30 years. You can't just get a grader in there and just smooth it out. It needs ripping up, it needs reforming, it needs a lot of work. There was a request that came in over 20 years ago for someone to do it. The council at the time said that's going to cost us 40 grand just to grade it up for one plane, and that's 20 years ago. So it was deemed as waste of money then. I think trying to do it now would be a complete waste of money. I think we're looking practical here. If people want to land and fly small planes in our district, we know there are a number of small air strips in the area. They need to have contact with those people and use those ones. If you have an emergency landing, it's already in CAS's plans that you use those private strips. Maintaining this is just a complete waste of money for something that has not been used for over 30 years. It's also a handbrake on the development of the township because we need this to open up some housing developments. I think this is if we don't do this now, it's going to be a missed opportunity. The longer we drag this on, we're going to miss out on a year of leasing the property. We need to get onto this. Even if we don't do it now, we'll have to splash it. And that'll cost us that'll be another 6 grand of money wasted. Just do the right thing, just decommission this. It's no longer fit for purpose. Air ambulance have already said they're not going to use it. The CFA has already said they're not going to use it. There's no other facilities there, even the CFA want to use it. There's no water there. There's no fuel filling there. So why would they land there? I think the recommendation originally is what we should be doing, but the motion we're dealing with is not presented, which I cannot support. Does the mover wish to sum up?
I suppose, I'd like to see the Shire find out, work with the CFA and find out what sort of funding is available. What we're talking about here is a project similar to what Peternup Airfield was in 30 years ago. So if they can talk to the CFA, talk to the medical services, find out what funding is available, and recreational use. A lot of these clubs, connivers in that handy spot where it's on the border. They're the sort of people that need to be spoken to. And I'll just finish by saying, once it's gone, it's gone. So I'm asking you to think very carefully about that. I believe we're doing the wrong thing by that area of the state by closing down the airfield tonight. Thank you.
All right, we put it to the vote. All in favour? All opposed? The motion is lost. I will allow a subsequent motion. Anyone's prepared to move another motion?
I'm happy to move the officer recommendation as presented.
I will second that. Does the mover wish to speak?
Just that, it does actually allow provision in that, which says number 5, investigate the provision of a helicopter landing site within or near the Canova Township in consultation with Ambulance Victoria and other emergency service providers, so I think that does cover it. Also, I forgot to mention too, even with Matt Barley's accident, which was very, very serious, that was same thing, flying out of Nil, because Nil has got a really brilliant facility there. I just cannot see, when we've got the state government with whatever it is, $200 billion debt, you know, all of these grants, every time I'm applying for grants or have applied for grants in the past, you've got to put forward a business case. And there's so many things that we actually need. And I just cannot see if the council did actually go and apply for money to do something similar to what they've done with Eden Hope, what the business case would be, considering what Nil's facilities that they've actually got. Like I said, I'm certainly not in favour of shutting down Canova services. That's not what it is, but the people that I've spoken to are like, you know, there's bigger projects that we should be pursuing.
Thank you. Again, I don't see this as shutting down a service because it hasn't been functional for 30 years. I see this as like a lot of farmers, they got an old combine in the shed and they hold on to it and hold on to it thinking, well, one day it might be a wet year, one day I might need that. And then just rust away and it's a waste of shed space really, to be honest. I think we have opportunity to use this land for better purposes. And just remember, 20 years ago, Eden Oak didn't have a bit more of a need for it. It is one of the major areas. If you look at geographically for an airport, they were using a lot of the ambulance services at the time. It cost $5 million to get that strip up to scratch. And that's 20 years ago. So the cost that we're talking to replicate that would just be eye-watering. So I cannot see how we can afford that as council, and I don't see it getting too much support from the state government. Well, we have Nil and Board Town so close. So that would be my thoughts on that. Is there anyone else wish to speak for or against the motion? If not, does the mover wish to sum up? We'll put it to the vote then. All in favour? Or against? That is carried.
Division, please.
All in favour? Councillor Hobbs, Councillor Preglow, Councillor Mear. All against? Councillor Hicks, Councillor Hawley. Move to item 6B, the ceiling schedule, we have nothing in the ceiling schedule. 17, haven't got any late items of business. And when something gets in it. We now move to our confidential section, and just for those with us here in the room, we are going to have a very quick confidential meeting. We only have 2 items on the agenda, and hopefully we will get them through quite quickly. So once we move our next motion, go into confidential, you can sit for a second. We'll just politely ask you to leave and feel free then, once we open the doors, to come back and have a chat with us again. There might be some leftover cake in, I'm not sure. So, yep. So please feel free to hang around and have a chat about anything you like. So
All depends on how chat you are.
So
Yeah, give me 2 minutes if I'm allowed to, yeah, but go for an hour. No.
So is anyone prepared to move the recommendation? Councillor Preglow said, might be with all hands. That we go into confidential regarding items regarding the horror plant and treatment panel supplies and the contract for putting of municipal buildings and office. All those in favour? That is carried. Righto, thank you everyone.
I enjoyed the sunshine. See you.